Gulam Rasool Santosh. He was a legendary painter, poet, prose writer, philosopher, and most of all, my grandfather. And I'm going to talk about his early life story and the kind of work he did throughout his life, how he started, like where he's from, and like how originally he got to know about art, and about a little bit about his family, little bit about my relationship with him, even though I couldn't be with him for a long time because I was just born in 94 and he died in 97. But I still have some hazy memory of him. So I'll share all of that with you. That's my grandfather. So, born Gulam Rasool Dar in a lower middle class Shia Muslim family in Srinagar, Kashmir, the death of his father, a policeman, propelled young Santosh into early work as a signboard painter, paper mache artist, and a weaver to support his family. Like since the school days, he liked art, but in those times in 1929, like 1930s, like it was very hard to get colors and all. It was very expensive. It wasn't for everyone, and he studied in a government school at that time. He was born and brought up in a village called Dub in Kashmir, and like there's this part which my father told me, like which was obviously told by my grandfather to my father. Like he used to go to school pretty late. I mean, like at least like 1 hour late or 2 hours late, and like it happened once, twice, thrice, or four times. Like then eventually the teachers got annoyed and they were like we have to complain, or like so they told it to my great grandfather, and my great grandfather was in police, so he eventually followed my grandfather one day. Like where does he go? Either he's like just playing or like going around with his friends, but eventually his friend used to go to school on time, but he used to take a different route, go through farms and like and grasslands, and like take like a small hike, something like that, and used to just sit and look at the landscape, from which he got the inspiration. Basically, the landscape, the mysticism of the land of Kashmir gave him inspiration to do art. So, whatever little money he could save at that time, he would buy colors from them. And all his life, like he has been a traditional man, and like albeit to like modern and liberal mind. He was a self-taught artist who took his wife's name Santosh as his own in a move opposing patriarchy and religion. That's why his name from Gulam Rasool Dar was changed to Gulam Rasool Santosh by himself, just in honor for his wife, my grandmother. And he received the National Award for Painting in 1958 for the first time, and twice more subsequently, and received the Sahitya Kala Parishad Artist of the Year 1984. He was also honored by our president Gyani Zail Singh ji, and the government of J&K honored with him with the Kalhana Award in 1985. His paintings are a part of prestigious collection worldwide, be it any Christie's or Sotheby's, just to name a few. His art has been on view at major exposition and traveled and has traveled to New York, Tel Aviv, Kabul, Manila, England, Dublin, Barcelona, and I mean, name it. I mean, it's there. And recently, like we also found out, my father got a call from British Museum that they have a work and they wanted to get it checked by us. Because since it's tantric painting, they didn't know that it was like upside down. So we eventually told them that it had to be like rotated, and then eventually they are doing a show with it recently. And so yeah, I mean, after all, like even if he was so famous and like in this tantric world, and like he was still a man full of life and laughter. He was very fond of cooking, like my father, and eventually like everyone in my family, everyone is fond of cooking and eating. Eventually, see, he used to like cook elaborate meals for his friends and families, and he was always happy, even though like those around him would find his face lit up quite clearly with a distinct aura at such times, as if some force was manifesting itself formlessly, which often got transported to his own creations. So some of my the pictures of my grandfather. Like two of the things were always common in his hand. One was a paintbrush, and other was a cigarette, which is not something great, but he just couldn't stop smoking. And left one is from a studio in Gadi in Delhi, 1960s, and right one is from an art camp in Leh Ladakh. So if you would divide my grandfather's life through his work, this would be the timeline. In 1952, when eventually allegedly he started painting, and from where we have his work, before that we don't have it. Like, and he started by doing landscape, as I told you, in cubist style in 1952 to 1954, till when he was spotted by Shri S.H. Chirazaji, and then eventually he started doing early figurative work, and also some different kind of landscape, urban scapes and all. In 1959 to 64, the abstract period came, when he learned, I mean, he basically mastered the technique of impasto. Impasto is basically when you use knife or a blade just to put color, a, a thick layer of color on the canvas. There are many techniques which people do with a card also, and so on. And then comes the early Tantra and the later Tantra period. In early Tantra, where he basically went to Amarnath Yatra in 1964, and he started painting after 2 years of artistic silence on the concept of Purusha Prakriti or Shiv Shakti. And later on, then he basically did research about Kashmiri Shaivism and realization of self and the five elements. And his work also got inspired by, on the later stage, very later stage, inspired by Buddhist Tangka paintings also. So I'll take you through some of his works. This is from the first period, which is the landscape painting. These are like from the era where he didn't have any knowledge, he didn't have any training in painting or art. He was doing all of these for some of them for tourists, and some which didn't sold. We were lucky to get some of them. These are basically the backwaters of Dal Lake, and one of the still life he did from 1952. Then came the abstract part, and also when he started painting portraits after he went to MSc University in Baroda. And he started also experimenting with the figurative stuff, and he was also inspired by cubism, so that you can see in his work in this period. I mean, otherwise the call would have gone for like hours, but these are like technically my favorites. So the right one is like his self portrait, and I mean, from what I know, he, like, from what we know from his one of his teachers, my father knows about it, he told me. And he did the right portrait in like few, like 30-40 minutes eventually. And then like the impasto thing that I was telling you, in the abstract period. So this is basically, he has tried to show winters in Kashmir in an abstract manner. As you can see, like the strokes are thick, and like you can see, like there's quite a thick amount of color on it. That's how you do impasto. That's a self-portrait on the left side from 1960s, and that the right one is from 62. That's also like backwaters. In this particular era, he was inspired by the urban scapes of Kashmir eventually. And after that comes the main thing. After the realization of 1964, the Amarnath Yatra, he started doing Tantra painting. So basically, whatever he used to see, he used to paint while meditating. This is just a close up of one of the paintings, which you'll see in the next slide. So all of these paintings eventually, like, people are trying to decode, or like, I mean, if you would say in that manner, and like people are trying to, many people have their own renditions of the explanation, but even my grandfather couldn't explain a lot of them, because he, as I told you, he used to write about it a lot. And my father has dedicated half of his life to basically uh, accumulate all my grandfather's work and like to understand his work also, because he was the closest to him, and he's eventually working on it also. And like it's my father's dream also to make all these paintings come to life in three-dimensional, like we do 3D these days, or like something like with AR or something, like inside the painting. Don't know how, but he wants to try. So, and this is my grandfather in his element. It's just in our veranda back in the days, 1970s. As you can see, like his paintings were based on chakras from our body, like a human body. And then comes the neo-tantric phase where he eventually started meditating a lot, and then he used to see. Then his work was also inspired by uh, the Sri Yantra, as you can see, all these shapes are being made of. And this was one of his renditions of the Sri Yantra. He never used to use scales and all at all, and I don't know how, but he did that. And some sketches from 1980s. Like both of these are just to show the one of the five elements. Right one is to show the fire, and left one is to show air. So he was also like, after like meditating so much, like after the self realization part, he worked on like five elements also, and this was also based on it. Left one is the female representation of human body. And yeah, I would like to end the talk with a picture of me with him when I was a baby, and also something that he said. I would read out to you. Just give me a second. Yes. So Santosh himself wrote, "It is said, when there was nothing, that indeed was everything. Around there was that I as well, where dreams of beginning and the end lay asleep, lost within manifold dreams. That world of half sleep, terrain of doubt between yes and no, vision that tired returns, the eye, wide awake but somnolent looking, does not cry nor smile. There was no rival in love, no love right either. Neither heart nor beloved. The illusion of Brahma broke, and the eye blinked. That which was not started happening all at once. The footfalls of silence became a lap. From the rhythm of breath issued incantation of Shakti, the even anuswar of ambrosial knee, Kameshwari Kalavati Ragini awoke. The golden warp and weft of Mani was illuminated. The chain of time tightened moment by moment. That which was nothing became visible. The eye sees the light of day. Night is a dark fire burning. The fire went out and a voice called out. Silence is that feeling of the unheard, unseen truth. Call it dream, and you are the emperor of dreams. Call it mirror, you are the fair visage. Call it musical scale, you are the voice. Call it time, you are the moment. Call it the beginning, then you are the end. You, the you connected with the I go. You will also return there someday, where there is nothing, the nothing that is everything. Thank you.